Call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Zerlo, would you please conduct roll call?
Certainly. Mr. Castine. Present. Mr. Conroy.
Here.
Mr. Dane is asked to be excused this evening. Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Henry is asked to be excused this evening. Mr. Perrier. Here. Mr. Potiker.
Here.
Mr. Rosenquist.
Present.
Mr. Timmons.
Here.
Ms. Waldron.
Here.
All legislators have received a copy of the stenographer's minutes of the January 8th regular session. If there are no additions, deletions, or corrections, I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So.
Second.
Second. I will now recognize those in the audience who wish to share their thoughts.
We need to take a vote.
Discussion and, and all in favor? Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
No, leave them alone.
All right. Leave them alone. First time on this, folks. All right. I will now recognize those in the audience who wish to share their thoughts and concerns with the legislature. Please raise your hand, and if you wish to be recognized, and state your name and address for the record. In accordance with the rules of order, all speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Okay. Making it easy on me. We will now go to the committee reports. Each legislator chairs one of 10 standing committees, and I will call on the chairperson of each committee in the alphabetical order by committee, starting with Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Perrier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first Building and Grounds Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Monday, February 10th at 4:30 p.m. End of report.
Children and Family Services, Mr. Potiker.
Thank you. The first Family and Children's Services meeting is scheduled for February 4th?
4th.
Yep, February 4th at 5 p.m.
5:15.
5:15. Always put it in 15 minutes.
Economic and Development and County Operations, Mr. Rosenquist.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the Economic Development and County Operations Committee was polled on resolution number 29, which has been placed on tonight's agenda. The first Economic Development and County Operations Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Wednesday, February 12th at 5:15 p.m.
And under Finance, first Finance Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Wednesday, February 5th at 6:15 p.m. And Health, Ms. Waldron.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first Health Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Tuesday, February 4th at 4:30 p.m.
Human Services, Mr. Conroy.
Yes, thank you. The Human Services Committee was polled on Resolution 30, which has been placed on the agenda. The first Human Services Committee meeting for 2020 is scheduled for Wednesday, February 5th at 5:15. And I have been chatting with the department heads of our nursing home, Wendy Bishop, and Veterans Affairs, Steve Bowman, and Office for the Aging, Darlene Collins, and seeing what concerns they have going forward in the new year.
Personnel,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of Legislator Henry, the first Personnel Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Monday, February 3rd at 5:15 p.m.
and Plattsburgh International Airport, Mr. Hall.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the Plattsburgh International Airport Committee met earlier this evening. Chris Craig, the airport director, provided an update on airlines and tenants in executive session and discussed essential air service bids received and terminal artwork. Resolutions 31 through 39 are included on the agenda as a result of the committee's recommendation. The next Plattsburgh International Airport Committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 26th at 5:15 p.m. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, we are planning a trip for the new legislators and the new airport committee at 9 o'clock next Thursday morning to see all the buildings at the airport, and any legislators that would like to come are more than welcome, and we'd be glad to have everybody there. End of report.
9 p.m. excuse me, 9 a.m. on
9
the,
a.m.
on the
Next Thursday.
30th.
Just to keep in mind, the chamber's breakfast is that morning as well.
Correct. The state of the county, state of the town, state
Does
of
that
the city.
affect any of the legislators that are, or the new legislators that are going to the airport?
No, nothing.
Chris? Patty? No, we're on then. And the report.
All right, Public safety, Mr. Castine.
Public Safety Committee was polled on resolutions number 40 and 41, which has been placed on the agenda. Our first meeting will be, 2020 is scheduled for Monday, February 10th at 6:15 p.m. And that's the end of the report.
Okay, Transportation, Mr. Zerlo.
Yes, on behalf of Legislator Dane, the Transportation Committee was polled on resolution number 40, resolution 42 and 43, which had been placed on the agenda this evening. And the first in-person Transportation Committee meeting of 2020 is scheduled for Monday, February 10th at 5:15 p.m.
Liaison reports.
No.
Chamber of Commerce.
I have no report for the, well, there's two breakfasts coming up. One is the State of the State with some of our state representatives that are coming into town. I believe that's February, Mike, what date is that? February 7th, I think?
No, Tony? Yeah, let's go with February 7th.
And then the other one is next Thursday, and that is the State of the County, State of the State, State of the City, hosted every year. Other than that, no report.
Okay, Clinton Community College.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak with the President of Pasquale today on the, the future of the college. As we've seen and as I just read, the state is cutting funding to community colleges again. But overall, there's a positive and it continues to be a positive trend at the college. They are looking at a balanced budget this year with a potential surplus that would go back into their general fund by the end of their fiscal year, September. Right now, they have 37 open positions, unfilled open positions. Ray doesn't think that, he might fill 3 or 4 of those before the end of the year, but that's a lot of open positions, and that's administrative as well as faculty. Some of these, they cannot go unfilled without risking accreditation, so they need to be filled. Other than that, there's the progress on the building is going very well. The scheduled end date of that construction is fall of '21, so another year and a half almost. But other than that, I'll keep everybody apprised too.
Chris, I think it may, I can do this, but feel free, maybe you could, or you could ask me to talk to the president and maybe invite new legislators up for a quick tour of the campus. We'll try to do it on a meeting day, so it reduces travel, but, and they can, because even the current legislators or the legislators that were holdovers have not seen the progress of the war building, so it may be worth us getting up there again.
I'll sort it out with Ray and Tammy to find a date to get people up there. This Friday is their kickoff, and with all the teachers and faculty coming to campus, so Ray can talk about the kind of state of the college at that point as well. And report.
Okay. Community Services Board, Mr. Conroy.
Yes, the Community Services Board has not met yet. Our next meeting is this coming Tuesday at 4 p.m. at the at Mental Health and Addiction. But I did want to mention that there was a film shown at the Strand that some of the board was at called Resilience, and it was about, it was put on by one of our local doctors, pediatric doctor, and it was about the ACE score, which is the Adverse Childhood Experience score that they do with youth to determine what services they might need in the community. So it's kind of a good, hopeful movie, and that's that.
Okay. Cooperative Extension, we have 2 new members on our board that just came on this year. And we will be sending somebody to Albany again this year to try to fight for more 2-2 forum funding. Again, it's been 20 years without an increase from the state budget for them, and they're hoping to see some outcome by being down there. So that is hopefully going to go good this year. Grievance, do we have anything on that?
No.
Inter-county?
I will be in Herkimer County tomorrow morning.
God bless you.
Thank you.
LC and LG? Mr. Schrader was here. Anything on LC and LG?
Yes, actually, there were 2 meetings, the loan committee and our regular meeting. And basically, all of the finances seem to be catching up, if you will. Many of the loans that were almost defaulted with the new administration getting these people to pay their loan payments on time has been tremendous. So everything is good and moving forward, with closable eyes, making sure everybody's making their payments. But they also want to, there's a surplus of money, so if there's anybody in Clinton County interested in these low-interest loans, high-risk, low-interest loans, there is money that they need to be starting to give out to companies wishing to.
So I ask this every time they have, is there something we could be doing?
I think
Do they put out some sort of?
they do put out something, but I think, I've always felt that Clinton County should be doing something maybe on their own. So speaking to Beth Gillis, she must have something, out there, how we can market these loans into Clinton County so we have more of our county aware that they're available.
If she would like us to participate in that somehow, I just don't want to step on.
Yeah, no, I will certainly speak to Beth
Maybe
and
you should
see.
provide something that we could put in the press public.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea, so I will get back to you with that.
Or in the sun.
And the
Or
sun,
in the
and
sun,
the sun,
yes.
and the
Don't forget
sun.
about the sun.
So don't forget about the sun.
Keeps us warm.
Very good. Soil and water, this time of the year, we're kind of just starting to look to see what we want to be doing for the summer coming up. The tire recycling has been doing really well, so we are looking to continue doing a few more of those trailers. And we're also looking to do something for Earth Day this year. Pete's working on trying to put something together. Possibly each town come up with an area of the town that the whole county could be involved, with cleaning or picking up or organizing, so.
On that matter, there is an issue in the town of Saranac, a tire issue. I think many of you may remember the property that we did not acquire due to the fact that there was tires. So the town of Saranac was wondering how they could be involved in getting rid of some tires.
Have them give Pete soil and water a call, or I can.
Okay, yeah, and
See
just
what,
let us know
what's
if there's
gonna be
any type of
available.
help out there for tire situation.
A lot of what we have been recycling is a lot from the towns that they all end up picking up from the sides of the roads. We do also have a limit of 10 people, tires per person, to bring them in of their own, but we have been certainly helping.
How many people in town of Saranac?
We could set a team up for sure.
All right, Workforce Development Board, Chris?
Yes, sir. The first meeting of the Workforce Development Board was on the 10th of January, which, for obvious reasons, I did not attend. The next meeting is in March. However, the Workforce Development Board is reviewing and sending out their regional plan, which includes Jefferson, Lewis, St. Lawrence, and our North Country Workforce Development Board. Components of that plan, local service strategies, local initiatives, and then the coordination of economic development partners in the region. That plan essentially sets the tone for how we work from an economic development and workforce development standpoint, how we work regionally with our partners. For those interested, I'll definitely make sure that the plan is widely distributed to this legislature. But if you want to make comment on it, there is a comment period between the 22nd and the 28th of January, which is today, starts today, and it goes through next week, sometime next week. But I'll make sure that people get a hold of the plan and they can review it and report.
All right, do staff members have reports? Ms. Keller?
I do have a matter for executive session for advice of counsel.
Okay. And Mr. Zerlo?
Just a couple things, Mr. Chairman. I put on everybody's desk, hot off the presses, 6 p.m. this evening, NISAC's initial interim review of the state budget. And, you know, I would urge you to take a read of that. Any questions, please get back to me. Obviously, there are several hot button items that directly affect us. One we've been reading about in the newspaper, having to do with local governments being part of the solution for the Medicaid problem in the state of New York. I will find on that issue. I will refrain from that this evening. That being said, I also gave you an article from today's Albany Times-Union from the Citizens Budget Commission that does a very good job outlining that issue. And it's very difficult, for, in my humble opinion, for someone to argue that the language having to do with the Medicaid cap, not the tax cap, but the Medicaid cap, is something that we will have to stay diligent on as we talk to our state representatives. The NISAC board, with which I sit on, meets next week in Albany. I'm sure that's going to be #1 topic of our discussion. You also read that our 2 state representatives, Senator Little and Assemblyman Jones, are against this language as they too understand that the solution should not be the local government mandate. So, but again, I would urge you to go through that. It will be buttressed over time as NISAC staff continues to find out answers to some of their questions. But this is a very good summary of what's in the budget and how it may impact county government.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on, I do want to acknowledge our team in the office. I asked them to put together a liaison schedule, which got sent out, so everybody who is on any liaison or board knows when they meet, where they meet. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the folks in the office for doing that.
Very good. Okay, before voting on the resolutions, I want to take the note that all resolutions have been reviewed by the appropriate committees, and the legislature is taking action tonight based on the committee's recommendations. Mr. Zerlo, will you please read the titles of the resolutions to be acted upon?
Certainly. Resolution number 29, approving application for refund Town of Plattsburgh.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Ms. Waldron. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, very briefly, as you may know, the county government is not exempt from, it is exempt from general ad valorem tax, but not exempt from capital special district taxes. And there are those taxes in the town of Plattsburgh on the property that the Clinton County Jail resides. The issue at play here was that the taxable value was misstated, and we paid special district taxes, capital special district taxes, on an assessment greater than we should have. As such, we will be receiving the refund from the town of Plattsburgh.
Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 30, authorizing payment of membership dues, Veteran Services.
Motion, Mr. Conroy, second, Mr. Castine. Discussion. All in favor?
Nope.
Nope, roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 31, authorizing contract with Absolute Fire Protection, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Perrier. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 32, amending resolution number 920 dated November 20, 2017, titled Authorizing Various Multi-Year Contracts, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 33, authorizing contract with Cummins Incorporated, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Ms. Waldron. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 34, authorizing Empire State Development Grant Extension, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Perrier. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 35, authorizing contract with Luck Brothers Incorporated, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 36, authorizing contract with Music Services of Vermont, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Ms. Waldron. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 37, authorizing lease agreement amendment with Tailwind PBG, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Perrier. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 38, authorizing contract with Alpine Systems, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 39, approving policy for public use of facilities, Plattsburgh International.
Motion, Mr. Hall, second, Ms. Waldron. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Resolution number 40, authorizing New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services Law Enforcement Anti-Crime Programs Extension, probation.
Motion, Mr. Castine, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 41, authorizing payment of membership dues, probation.
Motion, Mr. Castine, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 42, amending resolution number 956 dated November 26, 2019, titled Authorizing Contract with Johnson Controls, Clinton County Public Transit.
Motion, Mr. Conroy, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 43, authorizing contract amendment with the towns of Black Brook and Peru for snow and ice removal services for the 2019, 2020, and 2020 and 2021 snow and ice seasons, Highway Department.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Potiker. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 44, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for 2020 voting aid to localities grant, Board of Elections.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Mr. Castine. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 45, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for the buildings and grounds budget, buildings and grounds.
Motion, Mr. Perrier, second, Mr. Conroy. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 46, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for insurance reimbursement, central stores.
Motion, Mr. Timmons, second, Mr. Castine. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 47, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriation and corresponding revenue for Rural Private Well Assistance Funds Grant, Health Department.
Motion, Ms. Waldron, second, Mr. Rosenquist. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 48, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Safe Harbor Grant, Social Services.
Motion, Mr. Potiker, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 49, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriation and corresponding revenue for daycare registration grant program, social services.
Motion, Mr. Potiker, second, Mr. Rosenquist. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Resolution number 50, authorizing the county treasurer to increase appropriation and corresponding revenue for insurance reimbursement, Sheriff's Department.
Motion, Mr. Castine, second, Mr. Hall. Discussion. Roll call.
Perrier? Yes. Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Motion to waive Rule 13.2.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Resolution number 51, authorizing the county treasurer to establish appropriation and corresponding revenue for the Economic Development Budget Legislature.
Motion, Mr. Rosenquist, second, Ms. Waldron. Discussion.
Yeah, this is just to bring everybody up to speed and remind our new legislators, the Clinton County IDA contracts with Clinton County to administer its IDA. And this resolution takes the money from the IDA and properly disperses it in a county budget.
Roll call.
Mr. Perrier?
Yes.
Mr. Hall?
Yes.
Does anyone else have anything further to come before the legislature?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would like to begin the discussion of having meetings at 5:15.
Regular session.
Regular session meetings at 5:15 as opposed to 7 o'clock. I did speak with Chairman Henry today, and he thought it appropriate that we could discuss this tonight, if that's okay.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to remind everybody, if there is a consensus tonight, I would ask that you instruct me to put a resolution on for the following meeting. The time of regular sessions are outlined in our rules of order, which have been adopted for the year 2020. So the resolution, if you agree with Ms. Waldron's request, would be to amend the rules of order to change the time of the regular sessions. So we do need to pass a resolution.
And then, if we pass that, when would we move into 5:15 meetings?
The next meeting. Unless you make the resolution effective, a month out, which you may want to do.
So you're looking at putting that on the February 12th meeting for it to be effective on the 26th.
Correct.
And that would be the quickest, that would be the shortest time frame in which that change could be effective.
And then the question is just those meetings, myself.
And then I
Legislator
think
Hall.
there is another then conversation to be had, if that's the will of the legislature, on how that might affect standing committees that have traditionally been held prior to regular sessions.
Yeah.
So I know in conversations I've had with Chairman Henry, his desire is for the committee chairmen themselves to then have those discussions with their own committee members to facilitate times that will work for everybody. Maybe they don't need to be changed, and maybe we could do them on a different day, maybe we could do them earlier on that same day. There's all kinds of options, but the trigger, if you will, to have those discussions is the change in regular session times. So
Yeah.
that's why I figured you may, to Mr. Hall's point, may want to make it effective
March?
starting March 1 or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think the only concern that I would have is if we did keep those meetings on the same day, we would be pushing, my meeting included, we would be pushing that meeting to 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, which may not be conducive, well, certainly is not conducive for me, but I can, my schedule is fairly flexible, but it may not be conducive for the rest of the committee members.
Yeah, I would advise that if you do that, and you want the meeting continue to have it prior to a regular session, that you at least provide your standing committee 1 hour to do its legislative business.
Yeah.
Well, it seems we need to do that.
Legislator Hall, did that, Jake?
I brought it up to my airport committee meeting tonight, and all members were in favor of a 4 o'clock meeting on the night of our regular meeting. They had no problem with it at all. I also brought it up to the manager of the airport, Chris Craig, and he had no problem with it at all. The question was, can we get it all done in an hour and 15 minutes? And we feel, there are some items that we discussed for a long period of time that we shouldn't have to discuss for a long period of time, that we can give it a try and we think we can do it. So our meetings would start at 4 o'clock, the airport meeting.
So, should we do a show of hands of who, it sort of sounds like everybody is in favor of changing it, but we can do a show of hands, who does want to see regular session changed to 5:15? Okay, so I guess.
So, yeah, I
motion to.
well, you don't need a motion, you can just instruct me to put a resolution on the agenda. Now, the only question I will have is effective date. Would it be as soon as possible?
I'd like to see it by that last meeting in the month myself.
Because that is the February 26th, so.
We would meet at 4 o'clock and then regular meeting at 5:15.
Yeah, we just have to put it on that 12th agenda for the 12th. And then I'll get with my committee,
On the 12th.
on the 12th normal time, and I'll discuss a time change or a date change at that point. I have to look at my schedule out to see if a 4 p.m. meeting would work, but I don't know, right? So I'll figure it out. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Because I haven't been to any of these meetings yet. Is this February schedule kind of the way it normally runs?
February, as if there were no changes, Mr. Castine. So March, correct. So whatever changes get made will be reflected on that calendar, which will be sent to all legislators. Yeah.
Right. So normally Human Services meets
Correct.
before the first meeting of the month, and then Plattsburgh International Airport meets before the second meeting of the month, and the others are on off days.
No,
Correct.
that again. Economic development is the meeting that.
Yeah, county operations,
Okay.
not else.
Yeah.
Right.
So yes, you are correct, sir. Yeah. What you're looking at on the February calendar is the traditional schedule.
Okay. So Chris, you're saying you'll look at the economic development for 4 o'clock and we'll have a 5:15 meeting?
No, we'll discuss that in meeting. Right now, I'm just not gonna commit to.
No, I know you're not committing,
but-
but you're looking for that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's one option. The other option is to move it to another day, right? So we'll kind of sort that out in meeting. I haven't seen my February Economic Development Committee meeting agenda yet, so it's hard to say what we're gonna discuss at that meeting and if we're gonna use the entire time. We normally don't, and it's the beginning of the year. I mean, we'll see, but.
I believe you'll have ample opportunity
Yeah.
to discuss this issue at your February 12th meeting to come up with a plan for
Yeah.
March and beyond.
I figured as much.
Anything else? No? Okay.
You sure you don't want to make that motion right now? We can just like wrap it up.
I can't, I would like to,
All
but.
right. All right, I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into executive session to discuss.
Motion.
Second,
Second.
discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are in executive discussion.